Hey Sean, easy start I suppose. I wonder if you might just give an update on the fitness of your squad. Any fresh problems or any one you're expecting to be back for the weekend that wasn't available perhaps in midweek?
We're just keeping an eye on Corky. He had a tight hamstring, did well to get through the game last night. Johan's trained well for a couple of days, as has Robbie Brady, so we'll have to make a judgment call, as I've spoken of recently, to try and make sure they're almost overly ready, if there is such a thing. So we'll make a call on them. Still, we're getting back to the next challenge is not only just injury fitness, if that makes sense, or being clear of injury, it's actual true Premier League fitness. The good thing is these lads have come out for a couple of weeks. Their base fitness should be a lot higher than it was a few months ago, and getting them back into full first team action as quick as possible.
I know I've asked you about the number of injuries before, but the overall numbers across the league do continue to rise. And I just wonder, what does your data show you about the injuries and the number of injuries this season compared to other campaigns?
Well, the most obvious thing I've spoken about is the game schedule. And it is tricky. We get asked to give feedback to the league, which we do. Ourselves and Leicester didn't want the game last night. Ourselves and Fulham didn't want the game in the week that it was. But they can judge. They can make it the week that they want it, and it gets very difficult because when you've got so many injuries, obviously the last thing you need are loads of games. So that's the most obvious thing above all else from our years of data here and analysis. And also, you can add in the varying game time schedule as well. But in balance that, I must make it clear, I appreciate the challenge of what football's gone through and, of course, the game scheduling. It's very difficult. So every manager, every team will have their angle on any given game at any given time. It's just when both teams agree, maybe they could look at it slightly differently. If both teams agree that it should be put at a different date, then, you'd like to think there's a little bit more strength in the teams agreeing that. But as I said, it's a challenge that is amongst all of us. We've had probably the bigger game schedule. I think we were equal in only Man City, I think, in the last 40 odd days or whatever it was. And so I think there is a challenge. That's the obvious thing. Behind that, of course, we've looked at what we do. We've looked at the training schedules. Oh, the other thing is the time slots, of course. They're varying time slots. But we've looked at what we do. We've looked at the injury records. We've looked at soft tissue injuries. And it often does coincide with a game schedule. It's just, that's the most obvious outstanding thing. Just literally the amount of minutes players are playing. And if you've got more injuries, therefore, them players have to play even more minutes. So as you get players fit, sometimes someone else breaks and you're in that vicious circle of events.
Can you put a percentage on it in terms of the number of extra injuries you think you've had this year?
No, there'll be some boffin far brighter than me who probably could. I have no interest. I just have an interest in the fact they are injured. The teams that I've got behind me will try and examine it as I do for the actual injuries, but I'm not really interested in the percentage against anything else, just trying to get as many people fit as possible.
The new owners have now been at the club for 2 full months. I know in the early stages particularly it was difficult for you to build a relationship and get some face time with them. I just wonder, how's that coming along? Have you managed to get much more in terms of contact with them and been able to sit down and have any more meetings with them?
Well, the FaceTime has been all right, obviously on my phone, but the actual face-to-face time has not been so good. Funnily enough, I've got meetings coming up with them, particularly with, the chairman, to continue to iron out things really, to look at thoughts from them, thoughts for the club, but also mainly on the football side in my department, obviously. But it's fair to say over my time here, I've had a fair view of the club at large. So yeah, that's ongoing really. And I think their meetings will get more active and more often, especially as the numbers, the COVID, the idea of the COVID rules and the way that we're working, very strict still now, I must make it clear, but hopefully over the next coming months, they soften slightly and allow it all to be a little bit more free flowing as regards meeting, various people at the club and staff, etc., etc. That's what we all hope, of course. But no, ongoing conversations, communication, but a lot going on at the club. A lot of things they're looking at, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch as well.
Lots of other clubs are beginning to start setting their stall out for the summer and recruitment. Do you think you're going to get those conversations over the next few weeks and months? Is there going to be a change of philosophy perhaps at the club this summer, do you think?
Well, I think it usually revolves around finance, of course, not always, but often. So we're still waiting on the idea of what they think is appropriate. I don't think there'll be huge shifts. I think it'll be gradual shifts. That's the impression I've been given. They don't want to. The impression I've got from my early meetings with the chairman and various people that are advising are that kind of building the club. Not especially on the financial model and the way the team operates, because we've seen it all before where it can be tricky. A new owner goes into a club and they can sometimes want to get off that really hard start by putting loads of finance into the team, and it kind of breaks up the team ethos somehow, and so I think we've got to build. It's a gradual process, I think, for this club, because that's what it's always been, and it's been a difficult process at times. So does it need pushing forward? Yes, I've spoken clearly over the last 2 or 3 years when the club was, quite obviously cash rich, about stretching the finance, not breaking it. So I think that's the kind of ongoing thinking, to stretch it, of course, to get the right quality of player that can affect us now or develop into the future, whilst not kind of undermining all the good work and the financial structures that have been put in place. Probably safeguarded too much the last 2 years, with the wage bill and things like that, been very low in comparison to the turnover and the money in the bank. But that's kept the club in good shape, of course. So now it's about, as I said, stretching it without breaking it. So that's mainly about the chats of what would be available. And behind that is the obvious, just analysing, players, looking across the board, keeping your ear to the ground. It's fair to say we're still not going to probably cherry pick the best players. We often don't have the finance, whether it be true finances in fees or wages, to do that. So it's always operating just slightly under the radar, seeing what's out there, seeing what we can achieve in the market, and being open-minded about it. The other consequence has been, with COVID, you can't get actual eyes on these players as well. Don't forget, a lot of it's been done through computer screens, as we are now. And sometimes, the last kind of tick box really is, I call it looking in the whites of someone's eyes, not physically, but you're there at the game, you can get a sense, a feeling of the player and what they're about and what they offer, rather than that kind of forensic view through a screen. And it is different, trust me. Excuse me.
Yeah, we know. I've been watching it through a screen for a year now, ready to have it live. What about this weekend then? Mikel Arteta's been quite complimentary in this week. He says he enjoys playing your sides. Do you enjoy playing Mikel Arteta's teams?
Well, it's still early, really. I've come across him a few times. I think, someone made me aware of his comments, and, I take them kindly because they're very, very gracious. And I think they're informed comments, from someone who, I off the top of my head, maybe 280, 300 games here. So he'll know about the culture of English football. He'll know about the changing styles of English football. Went through a few himself, don't forget, going, into Everton, particularly at that very early stage when they were pretty direct in a sense, good quality direct, I must add, with some very good players. But I think he added to that with his calmness on the ball and a different dimension to him. And I think going into management, I think he, 60, 70 games in or whatever it may be, I think he's finding that blend of what he wants from his team. And there's awareness of the opposition. And I just think it's different for some of the coaches who've been here either a long time as coaches or managers or as players. They maybe have a different view. They understand that not every team can operate in what now the media would describe as the right way of playing. And I think he's aware of that. He knows there has to be different ways that teams operate to be successful. And he'll be acutely aware. The biggest thing you learn when you get in that manager's hot seat is you've got to win. You've got to win. Whatever way you're going to do it, you have to win. Make no mistake. And he learned that very early on when there was a few question marks. Personally, from a management point of view, I'm very pleased that a club like Arsenal have given him time, and they continue to do so as he's adapting his style and what he wants, because I think that's good for management and on a whole, for the lifespan of managers. Because, clubs as big and powerful as Arsenal, if things are not going well, they can often change. And there was a few months ago now, there's a few question marks and everyone was wondering, but he's come through that, and rightly so, in my opinion, giving him a chance to work with the team, to mould it. Bit up and down more latterly, but they had a really strong spell, and they're a very good outfit. We know that. They've got some very good players. And I think he's finding his way, like all managers do. I'm still finding my way, and I'm kind of 300-400 games in or whatever it is. So he'll certainly be finding his after 70-odd or whatever his game schedule, game amount is. So, but no, I take his words kindly, and I wish him well beyond our game, of course.
And just finally then, do you see any similarities between the pair of you? I mean, obviously taking into account the respective sizes of the clubs, but Arsenal haven't been able to perhaps have the free spending approach they might have liked to have done to compete with some of their rivals at the top of the table, very much spending within their means, and yourself the same, and maximising what you can get out of the group of players you've got. Are there similarities there, do you think?
Well, obviously I'm better looking, and he certainly got a better head of hair than me, that's for sure. Beyond that, I don't think we're quite in the same league as them financially, I've got to be honest. I think that's stretching the mark a little bit. The idea of moulding a team, I think that's fair of all managers. I think that whatever level you're at, whatever finance you've got, you've still got to mould a team. So I think that's a given. Jurgen Klopp, the power of his group and what he's done there, it took him time, and he's done brilliant things in Germany and then superb things here with that side, but it took time. People sometimes forget that. The famous story of Sir Alex Ferguson, the first couple of years getting questioned left, right and centre. Allegedly, I was at the game actually. Allegedly, the turning point of Mark Robins scoring against Nottingham Forest. I was an apprentice there at the time, and the rest is history. So, some of the best managers take time, and that's part of the job. It's just that we're in a business now and an industry that doesn't give people time. So that's the adaptation that you've got to get.
I've taken up enough of your time. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Can we go to Samashu, please, PLP?
Hi, Sean.
Hiya.
Nice to see you. Just a quick reflection on last night, if you don't mind. A first Premier League goal in over a year for Matej Vydra. How much of a relief was it to him to get on the score sheet, and how important could that be for your side going forward?
We'll see, but he's you got to remember, it sounds a long time a year. He hasn't played all that time, obviously, but he's been in and out. He's had moments and some good moments for us. It's pleased to see him get a goal, obviously. Good goal that it was as well. I think he's adapting, he's learning about us and about what it is, and I think he's improving. I think his energy for the side, because he's arguably one of the quickest, if not the quickest here, using his pace when it's appropriate and the weapon of that pace. And I think he's working off the ball better, and his awareness to defend. We ask everyone to defend here, even the strikers. Operated very well last night with Chris Wood, I thought was excellent. And I always think if you're going to play two up there, they've got to come to the party, because you're a man down in midfield. We ask a heck of a lot from our midfield, usually almost always playing against three. And I think your strikers are important. I thought last night both of them gave us energy, some quality, and both looked a threat. And particularly second half, I thought we were a very strong second half. So pleased for them too, but pleased for the whole team actually in the performance and the mentality to take the game on.
Yeah, I guess if you can get Chris Wood and Matej firing together, as you mentioned, they seem to complement each other pretty well last night. Maybe get Jay in behind as the number 10 and Ashley back in as well. Things look pretty good going forward, don't they? Because obviously you've had the injuries to contend with some of those players.
Well, I've said all along that I believe in the group, and I believe in them four as strikers, or the main strikers. A couple of the young lads have supplemented that this season. There's four decent players there, in my opinion, and they give a lot for the cause, and getting them all truly fit and having them available would, of course, be a positive. We've currently got the three with Woody just coming back in. The varying stretches we've had, it's happened in our strikers as well. But no, I think they're all very good players, and they can all adapt and play for us in different ways. They're all slightly different characters, the way they are in the pitch as well. And it gives us that bit more flexibility amongst the strikers.
150th appearance for Matt Loughton the other night, certainly in the Premier League anyway. I know he spoke earlier this week saying that he injured his ankle when he was celebrating one of your goals at Wembley from a few years ago. Has he been slightly unfortunate not to get an England call-up? Obviously, he's up against some very, very good wing-backs, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I think it was the FA Cup semi-final. I don't think it was at Wembley. I wish it was. I played there once in a playoff final, but he was far too young for that one. But yeah, no, Louts, you know what? He's developed. I continue to push him in the sense I think he's got unbelievable quality at times, and I think he's a very rich vein of form at the moment with that. I thought he was, in a very tough day at Tottenham. I thought some of his work with the ball was excellent. I think generally his form lately has been very, very good. I thought last night some of his passing, his crossing. Trust me, he can play. He's technically very, very good. And he continues to find that balance. There's an edge in football, and I think some players have to fight for it. And I think he continues to do that. All players get a bit anxious and a bit edgy, and I think they need to win that battle. And I think he does that. He's getting more and more mature in his performances, but also the build-up to a game when he looks more confident and he conducts himself on the field with that body language and that confidence. And I think when it really glows, he's a very, very good player. And I think lately he's in really good form. And I thought last night he was excellent.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Over to Dan Jewell, please. Ready, lecture?
Hello.
Beardy, what's happening?
All right, not so bad, thank you. Nice to see you. It's almost 12 hours since you last did all this.
I know, yes. Thrilling. Have you got the back knotting again? Oh my goodness, I have no clue what this guy's doing. I've told you it's not the one, mate. Just get rid of it. Just chop it, bruv. Just get rid of it.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll leave it there.
I just want to ask about, I talk about, speaking to the media 12, 15 hours ago, whatever it was. The schedule the way it is it harder than ever to switch off from football? To kind of get a little break away from it and not have it dominate your life? I was talking to another manager this morning who said it's harder than it's ever been for him to separate himself from kind of work and home life. What's it like for you?
I think it is a bigger challenge because I'm definitely one who likes the separation. I make sure I get a separation from what I do to make sure that I'm thirsty for more and to make sure I keep my edge for my profession. So I am one that likes to switch off. I do like to get away from it, whether that be family time or, well, not now obviously, but forgetting about COVID generally, then family time or golf or, sometimes on the bike or varying things down, a couple of pints with friends, bit of dinner, that sort of thing. So I do separate from football. It has been more tricky, and the thing is when we're all in lockdown, you turn on the TV and of course you inevitably, when you're in football, you inevitably switch on that game and another game and another game. I spent more time because of the game schedule away from the family as well, so that's been tricky. I think whoever it was who said that, I understand. It is very dominating at the moment. It's always there anyway, at the back of your mind, or it is with me. No matter, even when I'm switching off, there's always a thought at the back of my mind about it. So, but generally, it's been tougher, and even little things like a couple of hours in a cinema, it can break the thinking a little bit. So, I think it is full on, but it is part of our life. I'm used to it. It's one of them things. And hopefully the world's looking like so far that things are beginning to show signs of getting back to some normality. So soon enough we will get some form of a break. But equally with the amount of games we've had, then realistically there was no break anyway. But on a week-to-week basis, then I do like to get a break from it. I think it keeps me fresh for what I do.
Do you think it's the same for the players? Because we talk endlessly, for obvious reasons, this season about injuries and the physical side of stuff. But I know a lot of the time an incentive or something that can really help them will be have a day off, have a couple of days off, spend some time with your family. And that's clearly more difficult at the moment.
Yeah, I think we covered this a few weeks ago. But, I'm not crying it in because footballers they've earned the right to have a privileged life, by the way. People forget that. Sometimes it's, footballers get this, football get that. They do forget the hours since being probably 7 years old they've put in, by the way, for their profession. But people do forget that bit. But no, it is tricky. There's a lot on these games. There's a lot of, even without fans there, because fans bring a different kind of stress and emotion, obviously. But they're not stupid, these players. They know that it still means a lot. It know them next points on the board, them next points on the table, what they mean. So there is still stress and strains and the physicality, of course, the mentality. And it does take time. And when you haven't got a true break, because you get home and the same sort of thing, you're trying to do things with the family. It's very difficult at the moment. You're trying to break up your week. We've got loads of games, so that's difficult. And you're getting that thing where basically you're just recovering, playing, and that's your mindset. But there's not even a break, as I said, where you can pop out for something to eat or see friends and family or go for, the cinema. So it is tough, but like I said, I'm certainly not going to cry it in. There's people out there way worse situations than most footballers. But equally, there is a balance. It is the reality of their lives, but it is a challenging life. They can't, for all everyone says, about, they've got this and got that, what are they going to spend it on? What are they going to do? You can't do anything. So there's no point in having everything, what people think is everything, and not being able to do anything with it. So I think there is a bigger demand on players at this moment, but as I said, the balance is there's people in way worse positions and way worse moments in their life at this time than footballers, I think.
I think we're into the mid-30s of managerial changes in this season, which seems like a ludicrously large number at the best of times. Do you think that football and footballers and managers are under more scrutiny at the moment?
Probably just because there's more coverage across the board. Every game worldwide wise is covered anyway, as you well know, but there's more in this country through the varying companies. There's more kind of forensic view as well. Less people no people in stadiums, obviously, and therefore, more people watching at home, more forensic view, therefore more knock-on effect, more media, more social media, more angles, more detail on whatever it may be, media streams, blogs, social media, etc., etc. And not always right, of course. So, there is a bit more on it, but like I say, look, it's part of what we do. It's part of the lifestyle we lead. I think everyone's used to it. Most players, are used to what it brings and the goods, the bads, and the indifference, and certainly managers are. So I just think deep down we're all just getting on with it. Making the best job of it, what we can.
In terms of the game itself, how important is scoring first in a game, Sean? I think it's something like 2/3 of the time when you have scored first, you've gone on to take something from the game.
Well, there's an obvious thing then. So it seems like it's pretty important according to what you've just said. No, I think, look, people go on about goals as if it's just the goal as in literal scoreline, but of course there's more to it. It can change mentalities, it can change the psychology of a performance. It can give people a lift. Sometimes it goes the other way. Sometimes teams can get fearful from scoring. So I think there's a lot more to it than the literal scoreline. Of course, I think most stats, by the way, for most teams would be preferable for going, a goal in front. We had a spell when we hadn't turned one around in the Premier League of 3 or 4 seasons ago, and now we've turned quite a few around, including, I think, the double turnaround against Villa this year. So, certainly we've grown from that respect, and we understand how to deal better with a goal down. And when we're a goal in front, I think the players know how to operate. It just adjusts the feeling of a performance sometimes. So, obviously it is beneficial if you can get a goal in front.
Statistics always kind of make me look a little bit sceptically. I was looking at some form tables and people talking about in-form Fulham, and you've been talking about perhaps being away from your levels up until the other night for a couple of games. Last 10 games, I think you've got more points than Fulham. It's a perception thing, isn't it? Sometimes you can take these statistics one way or another.
Look, the way the media streams have changed I'm sort of in year 10 of management this year, so it's changed radically. It used to be a spell of games. Now it's literally one game can change the perception of everything. They're doing great, they're playing really well. And you go, right, I think they've won 1 in 6, but everyone, because it was a good performance, changed their view. I think we're all used to that. I certainly am. I know the stats, the facts, the figures quite obviously. And I know with my own eyes when the team's performing how I think they should perform, to the betterment of them and what we do. So I just think it's always interesting, the media view, how they spin things. People as well, by the way, individuals, who lives in which box. And sometimes it just fits. It fits with the storyline. So I think you just get used to it. I'm certainly not, as mentioned recently, when Roy Keane mentioned something, that's their job. That's your actual job. Your actual job is to say something about whatever you're seeing as a football pundit. So therefore I'm like, okay, put it out there whenever you want. The same with perception against facts, because I know the facts. So, people want to allow perception about what we're doing or what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, crack on, no problem. Because I know the actual facts of what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. But you are right, it does change, and it changes quickly. Perception against true facts and opinion against maybe facts, and that sort of thing. But I think it's just part and parcel of it. I'm very much used to it, that's for sure.
And you had a bit of history earlier in the season when you won at Arsenal, first time in a very long time. Will that have any bearing on this game in terms of preparation? Will you take anything that you did that day into this one?
No, not too much. The last one doesn't guarantee the next one, that's for sure, especially when you're playing good outfits like these. They've still got some very good individuals. Arguably, the manager and the coaches there, I think Steve Round with him as well. I knew Rownley was an apprentice at Derby when I was an apprentice at Forest, so we go back a long, long time. They're getting the team, I imagine, to where they want it to be. A bit more of a tricky spell lately, but generally speaking, the league position, they'd probably want to be a bit further up the table, a club like Arsenal. But, as I suggested earlier in these interviews, I think it's refreshing that it seems to me they're giving them time to mould the team. So I don't think we take too much from that. There were some good points of our play in that game. So, of course, we've got to make sure we're delivering our side of it and the good points that were there, because some of them are valid anyway, no matter what stage of the season or who you're playing. But no, we don't take that one for granted. So obviously we've got to be ready for this one. And I think strong signs of performance last night against a good Leicester side. And now we've got to take that into the next one, which, of course, is Arsenal.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks, Dan. Ian Parker, please. Friends Association.
Hi, Sean.
Hiya.
Just want to follow on a little bit about what we were saying earlier on about the strikers. When everybody's fit, do you have a best pairing?
Usually the most effective at any given time that I'm looking at. Sometimes you look at the history of the pairings. So the obvious one is Woody and Barnsley, who have been successful together and both scored goals. But sometimes it's the connection. You know, I had a tough decision to make for the last night's game because Gerard and Vids and then Woody coming back fit. We protected Woody a little bit on Sunday, you know, to see if he'd be that extra few days helps. But then you still got to pick one of the other two who have both been, you know, performing in different ways. They were very good at Fulham together, for example. So, you know, I think it's adapting as the challenge comes right in front of you. And I think in this game schedule, if we'd had all four fit, I think they'd all have been playing football. I think they'd all have got minutes on the pitch during this heavy game schedule. Generally, when it's a Saturday, then I'll see who's performing and see what connection they've got during the week and look for that connection, of course, at the weekend.
Okay. And also the last time you played Arsenal, that was part of a pretty strong response to a heavy defeat against Manchester City. Are you hoping that this can be part of a strong response to a heavy defeat at Tottenham?
Well, you might not have forgotten, but we played Leicester last night in between. So I'd be more hoping it was a really good reaction to a really good performance against Leicester. Tottenham was some way back, so no, we don't really reflect on games, 2 games back, that's for sure. Maybe 1 game back, but not 2 games back.
You played Everton in between City and Arsenal last time, so there was another game there.
Oh, well, you didn't mention that, you see. So if you would have mentioned that, I would have joined in with you and said, oh, well, we definitely worked 2 games back. Automatically, we always work 2 games back.
Okay.
Whatever you want me to answer, I'll answer for you. So just put whatever you want. Just write whatever you want. Just go, yeah, they always work 2 games back.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, Ian. Last in broadcast section, Alex James, please. Alex Live.
Hi, Sean.
Hiya.
Just a quick follow-up on what Ian was saying now about the strikers. You spoke last night about how sort of pleased you were with Woody and Vids as a pair. I think that's only the second time they've started a Premier League game together for varying reasons. Do you sort of think they have the capabilities to form a really effective partnership and perhaps lay down a gauntlet to be that first choice pair based on what you saw last night?
I think all 4 of the strikers have the ability to play together. That's why we put them together, you know, because we want varying ways of the team operating. And as I said, you know, when you play with 2 strikers, they have to come to the performance level. They have to, because you are forfeiting usually a midfield player against most teams now play with 3 in midfield or a version of it. So I think whatever the connection is with the strikers, we pick it on what we see with our eyes, what we're seeing in training, what they're doing in performances, of course, and of course injuries as well. But no, I just felt, me and my staff felt that it was a good decision to play Woody and Vids, and I thought for a large part of the game it worked out well. So we'll see going forwards.
Whereabouts is Barnsley up to in terms of his fitness? Is he a little bit behind Robbie and Johan?
Yeah. Robbie and Johan have trained the last few days, some with the science team, but some with the team as well. So they're certainly coming back into the thinking. Yet again, we might have to make a decision in the bigger picture of events, but certainly coming back into the thinking around the squad, that is. Barnes is a bit behind that. He's getting back on the grass the next few days, but he's not close yet. So he is making good recovery time. So we're happy with that at the minute.
And just lastly for me, Neil Hart left his role of CEO this week, a person you've known for a long time and a working relationship with for a long time as well, going back to your time at Watford together. What's your sort of reaction to that, and is it a sign perhaps of the new owners just wanting to freshen things up a little bit at the top of the club?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things I'm involved with. I'm certainly not involved in that situation, but there's certain things I am involved with at this football club. The business side of the club is what they will certainly be running. The football side is my department. I do cross over with some things. Neil's a good operator, as simple as that. And, you know, of course, I wish him well beyond this challenge that he's had here. And it has been a challenge, that's for sure. His tenure as CEO has not been the norm, let's say. There's been plenty going on. And I think he's handled himself very, very well. So, of course, we wish him well beyond this.
And have you got the grass length right at Turf Moor this week for Mikel and Arsenal?
Oh, so churlish of you. So churlish of you. We'll just get on with the game, don't you worry about
maybe
that.
It wasn't very funny.
Sorry?
I thought I'd try and finish with a joke, but maybe it wasn't a funny one.
You are correct.
Nice one. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.